Hello, and welcome to Local Legacies, the show where we go behind the scenes with enterprising individuals who are striving for the best in their business, family, community, and themselves. I'm your host, Tim Lanza, and without further ado, here's this week's guest. Alrighty, hello everyone. We've got Dan Piper in the studio today of Piper Electrical. Actually, our first official return guest. He was nice enough to grace us with his presence once. We had some technical difficulties, technical issues with the cables and the mics, so he's been nice enough to come back and have another conversation with me, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Nice to be here.
Yeah, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's kind of a rainy day today, but doesn't dampen anybody's spirits.
Ask Jeremy. I mentioned this before. It always rains when we record. For some reason, on the days we record, it's always raining. But it's a good day to be inside.
Yes, it is.
So why don't we start out? Tell me a little bit. I remember when I first broached this idea to you about talking about your company, and you said, no, it's not my company. It's my grandfather's company. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay. My grandfather was an electrician, and in the early to mid 1920s, he and a partner formed a company, and were electricians in the Leominster area. Harry Harvey and William Piper had a business, and it grew and shrunk many years until they were both elderly. And in 1973, I was lucky enough to be able to work for my grandfather, and I helped him, and I ended up taking the business over. I had gotten out of the service and needed a job, to be honest with you. I was married and had 2 children, and took the business, and it's been mine since the mid-'70s to be very lucky enough to have made it into a fairly successful business and made a lot of friends and a lot of good acquaintances for a lot of years.
Yeah. Now, when you were coming out of the service, you said you're just looking for a job, but did you see this opportunity there? Did you imagine where this would go?
Well, I didn't really. I had finished high school, gone a couple of years to college, and found out that I never really learned how to study in high school, much to my chagrin, and got drafted. That was in the time of the Vietnam era. I got drafted and ended up in the Coast Guard, did 4 years in the Coast Guard. But when I got out, found a job available from my grandfather, who had been instrumental in my life since I was a very young boy, and thought it would be kind of exciting. It turned out that it was.
Yeah. What was your relationship like with your grandfather?
My grandfather, because my dad he worked. He had to put food on the table for our family, and I had the luxury of being able to grow up with my grandfather. At the age of 6, he gave me an axe, and we went and cut down trees and for firewood and different things. My mom didn't like that so much. She was a little paranoid that I would lose a leg someplace along the way, but that didn't happen. When I was 8 years old, he handed me the keys to his brand new pickup truck and asked me he said, go get the cows. Well, he had a couple of cows, and we'd stake them out in the morning and let them eat grass in the pasture down below our house. And at the end of the day, he would go down and hook one to each side of a tailgate of his truck and idle the truck up in first gear and bring the cows back to the barn. And when I was 8 years old, he said, go get the cows. Gave me the keys to his truck, and if you thought my mother was excited when he gave me an axe at 6, triple that. Triple that in those days. But nothing happened, and cows lived, and so did I, so I guess it was all good.
Now, how do you think those type of experiences affected you, throughout the rest of your life?
Well, I became very attached to my grandfather. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to have a garden. He taught me how to take care of animals. That I probably wouldn't have had that kind of experience without him. So when it became an opportunity to work for him and then finally take over his company, I felt like that was a payback of sorts. And my whole life's work is to pretty much make my grandfather proud of me.
It sounds to me like he kind of gave you an opportunity at an early age or continued to give you opportunities to step up to the plate and kind of be a man yourself, or, take action and create something. And then it's just interesting to see the way that followed through all the way with his business.
I think you're right. And of course, at the time when I was 6 and 8 and 10, 12 years old, I didn't see that, but I think you're absolutely right. And it shaped a good part of who I am. The good parts, anyway.
That's a good thing. Now, what was your working relationship like with him? Because it's one thing when you're a little kid, it's your grandfather, everything's fun, but then then it's time for business.
Well, when I ended up working for him, he was elderly. He was in his 80s, and quite honestly, ready to hang it up. So I took over the book work and did the work. I had an uncle, his son, who worked with me and taught me a great deal about the electrical business, about how to do the work and how things worked. And I worked with him. And I think the relationship with my grandfather taught me a lot of things about a good work ethic, and stick to things and bring them to fruition.
Yeah, it's funny. I look at you're around my dad's age, and I look at that generation compared to mine, and it's like, they don't make them like that anymore. And then you go back another generation, it's like they really don't make them like that anymore.
They were hardworking people. Everybody. I'd like to think that some of that has rubbed off on me. Sometimes not always to the best result, but I've been a hard worker throughout my whole career, and it's paid off. It's paid off. Things are good at this point.
As a young man with a family taking over, how did things look, or what was scaling up like? Just for the business itself, as far as growing it, and you started obviously probably taking on more clients, taking on bigger projects.
Well, for many years we had pretty much 2 industrial accounts and did a few residential jobs here and there. My passion became to work for factories, industrial accounts. I liked larger power, bigger projects, and that sort of thing, and that's what we focused on. In 1973, I think we had 2 industrial accounts, and over the years we built that up to several hundred good, solid, great relationships with many of our accounts, and a good place to have ended up.
So it's pretty massive growth over that time period.
It was slow at first, and it worked out very well.
There's something I think really special and drives me as far as like seeing that vision of here's the things I want to do, or here's what I like most about my work, and then being able to control it and push further in that direction. So like you're picking up these industrial accounts, growing the business in that way. I think that's really rewarding.
Certainly is. It's every time something good happens, it's a win. It's like any kind of a competition, and I guess I look at some things like that. Anytime you can win, it's a plus. It's a feather in your cap. It's a pat on the back.
Definitely. So maybe a good time to explain kind of exactly what you guys do at Piper Electrical. I know there's a couple different factions of the business.
Sure. We've got a couple of different divisions, but basically we're an electrical contractor, and we do some mostly service work to repair and assist and install electrical equipment for industrial accounts, whether it's a brand new factory that goes up and start from scratch and build the whole place electrically, or whether it's adding a machine here or there when our customers put new machinery in. We do have a residential division that takes care of, we do a lot of work for some condos and some individual houses. And we do some project work. We do some bigger installations at times. We're not a big company, so we have to meter what we do with the size that we are to be able to maintain proper service for the rest of our customers.
Employee-wise, how big are you guys?
Well, we've got about 20 people, not very big at all. However, 4 years ago, my company was acquired by a larger company, Elm Electrical Company in Westfield, Mass. Purchased my company, and they're a much larger company than us, but they've allowed us to become a satellite operation of theirs and maintain our relationships and our work ethic in this area, Leominster, and a 30 or 40 mile radius from Leominster. We're at 20 people. We've got a fully staffed office and a couple of estimators and some electricians, journeymen and apprentice electricians.
Well, you're saying we're not that big. We're small, 20 guys or so. I mean, it's a lot of people to have working under you. What is that like being the point man?
Sometimes on Thursday mornings, it's a big company when you have to come up with a paycheck for everybody. But it became comfortable to work with that amount of people, and because of those people, it's been a wonderful experience. I've always had great people. A lot of those people who have been with me 10 and 20, and in some cases 30 years. So I kind of believe that I've treated people right, and that the stuff flows downhill, and they treat my customers right. They get treated right, and it's a good thing. Everybody ends up a plus at the end of the day.
I mean, that's pretty incredible that you've had people working for you for that long, just in any job is, obviously that's their career, just sticking with you. So there's a reason for that.
Well, I definitely think so. And part of it is I like to treat people who work for me and people who we work for, treat them honestly and treat them fairly. And if everybody knows that they're going to get the job done right, whether they're performing the job or whether they're getting the job done for them. And I think that I think they're very happy that that relationship exists, and they can trust our company to take care of them and make the end of the day come out correctly.
Definitely. Now, when did becoming acquired or getting bought, or when did that kind of come on your radar? Was that an idea of yours? Were you approached?
No, I was approached. I have some friends who knew some people who were looking to acquire a business in this area who does what we do to expand their presence. They're from the company that bought us is from Western Mass. I'd spoken to them several years before, and then the conversation kind of went stagnant. And in 2016 and 17, we talked again and decided that it would be a good merger/acquisition, and we came to a deal, and it's been wonderful. It's been terrific. They're the same as us, but 10 times larger.
Really? No, that's awesome, because that's, I think, a huge fear. If you're being acquired, you've got your company, you've got your culture. This is quite literally something you've built, and now they're somewhat in control. So have they let you kind of keep going the way you've been going?
Absolutely. They, the relationship that we have with them, I don't think anybody was assured at the beginning that things were going to work out the way that they have. We've become good friends, both of our companies, both of the owners, both of everybody who's in charge, as well as have a great working relationship. They've used our people on certain projects, and we use their people when we need additional personnel. It's been a really, really good relationship, and the people are very similar to us as far as their work ethic, as far as their objectives. It's I couldn't have asked for a better ending to this story.
Yeah, and with that being said, I mean, the story's not really over. What's your current role? I know it's
No,
still pretty active.
Well, I had, from 2017 until now, 4 years later, I had a 3-year contract. It's long gone, and they still seem to like me coming in and adding whatever it is that I add, any bit of leadership, and I still enjoy doing it. It's been a passion of mine since the beginning. I enjoy being there, and I enjoy working with my guys. It's becoming less and less as I get older. I don't have to go out and pull wires anymore or do anything like that. But it's still part of my life to be involved with this business.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I find in my own case and in many others, every smaller business is a family business, whether they're working for you or not. So how are I know you've got some children. Are they involved with the business?
They're not. I have 3 daughters, and they all have their own lives. One lives on the West Coast, one lives in Virginia, and one lives close here. She lives in Worcester. They are not terribly involved. However, the daughter who lives in Worcester is about to be married to an electrician who happens to work for me and manages the business as my assistant manager. It didn't be planned to be that way, but here it is, and it's a good thing.
That's
it's very
awesome.
nice.
Yeah, I have spoken to a lot of guys that are, my dad's age or your age, and, have had conversations where they've expressed if they, don't have sons necessarily, that's something that they look at as wanting to hand the business over or be able to do that. Obviously, you've passed yours on to a larger company, but that shares kind of a similar vision to you. So how do you, I'm trying to think of how to word this, but basically, are you happy with that, or would you see it either way?
Well, of course, I'm very happy with that. Who knows that if fate changed it and I had sons, things might be different. I don't know. I had 3 beautiful daughters, and they've gone their way. And my family, part of my family is my business, my relationships, and my people who work for me, my employees. And part of the family now is the larger company who's taken us over. And it's more than just nickels and dimes at the end of the day. It's a relationship with everybody.
I think that is what keeps everything together. That's why you've got someone who's worked for you for 30 years, because it's not just about money. It's not just about the work itself. There's a lot more to it.
I've often thought that if you do a good job, the money will happen. And it pretty much did. Not all by itself, but that's what happens. I think success isn't about counting dollars.
Now, on the subject of family, you said your dad was working all the time. You spent a lot of time with your grandfather. Was your dad involved with his business at all?
My dad, I think, worked for my grandfather when he was in high school. Went off to World War II and came back. And my dad's passion was he was a mechanic. He ended up the mechanic for the Leominster Fire Department and was there for 35 years and was pretty much famous in his own right. He was a good guy. He was quite a guy. But he never really worked. He wasn't part of the business that I took over, and I didn't have that with him.
But clearly, you come from obviously a long line of hardworking men, and it shows with you and what you've built.
Well, thank you. I guess that's true. Never really. My rearview mirrors aren't tuned up to look at that.
That's a good thing. It's good to be looking forward. Now, where do you see the business going, moving into the future?
Well, the company that took us over would like to be more project-based and they want to expand. They want to expand their presence in this community and also move probably more towards the Boston area. So I see some growth possibilities and probabilities for this division of their company they have another division in Marlboro, and I think at some point in time we'll work with those people and try to expand the capabilities in that area.
Now, on the more technical side of things, as far as the future goes with electricity, where do you see things going? Obviously, solar and alternative forms of energy are extremely popular right now.
Well, they are. But electricity, by the time it gets to the consumer, is still electricity. And I think people are going to need power to run machinery to manufacture the goods that are being sold to anybody in the world. So I don't think that where the electricity comes from is going to make a difference in that. However, making electricity, whether it's solar or whether it's windmills or any other form of generation, all needs to be wired. So we're involved a little bit in some of those facilities that manufacture electricity, as we were with generation, steam or gas-powered generators in the past.
Right. It's as those different forms of energy are kind of changing, or even like nuclear or whatever, the constant is the electricity.
Correct. The end result is electric power to run machinery to perform tasks.
Right. And now output-wise, like I know in this area, longitude, latitude, basically, if you've got solar panels on your house, it's good for like some of the year. You can't really get your full energy. So I'm assuming on the scale of the places you're working, the machinery, you couldn't have solar powering that type of equipment.
Well, solar power is a good assist, as is wind. But I think my own opinion is it's going to be a long time before any other form of electricity takes over conventional generation methods, which would be steam powered by combustion engines or nuclear. Sorry.
Yeah, and storage is a factor as well, right?
Storage is. Lately, there's been a lot of noise about solar farms, and they'll charge batteries during the day so that in order to help when the solar is not being active, batteries can provide backfeed into the system to give power as it needed to either shave peaks or provide electricity.
Okay. Yeah, like I know obviously in Lancaster, they just built that whole solar farm. And then coincidentally also in Lancaster, one of the vendors that I deal with, Junkyard, Nationwide, Auto Recycling, they're putting solar all over their yard with the cars, basically. They're covering it because it's just open space to them. So you're seeing these pop up more and more, and it's being utilized more and more.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's there are a lot of ways that you can utilize space that's not used now to be certainly productive. I'm familiar with that particular project, and it's pretty good project.
Yeah. Now, there's two different sides to this. I know you've got your personal side and the business side. We'll start with the business side. How have you utilized your business, or how has it been involved with the community and just kind of the surrounding area?
Well, we've always, when my girls are growing up, they played, all three of them played Lassie League softball at different times in their lives, and I got a little bit involved with that. So we've always sponsored locally the Lassie League things. We've always sponsored the high schools, several high schools around. We've always done a lot of different school sports, and the Starburst, which is a middle of July celebration that the city has done. We've been instrumental many years in the past, and now to sponsor some of the things that go along with that. It's important, I think, to give back to the community because they've given to us, and I'd like to think that in some small ways we've tried to help that.
Yeah. Now, Is there a reason, I guess, Starburst in particular, I know you've been very heavily involved with. Why is that important to you?
Basically, well, it's the city. However, some people who ran it were instrumental in getting us to be involved in it, and we went along. It was a good cause, so we have a personal interest in the people running it. I think that's a good way to focus some contributions.
Yeah, it really does kind of give you the leverage having your own business and being able to contribute. You know, everyone has their cause, or everyone has things that are important to them, and being able to focus on those things. And with that being said, I know that you're heavily involved with the Veterans Center. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I can. I got involved a few years ago through a high school classmate who has started a group to Montachusett Veterans Opportunity Council in Gardner, and it's to assist veterans who have trouble assimilating back into society for whatever reasons they have, whether it's a bad set of circumstances, or maybe there's some substance abuse problems or relationship abuse problems, and they need to get back into society. And this group has a lot of resources to do counseling and also housing to help a lot of people veterans getting out of the service or have been out of the service for a while to get back into society in a productive level. And I've gotten involved in the last couple of years, and it's become a passion. I'm very happy to, in whatever small way that I can, provide some kind of direction or guidance or help in any way to this group.
Now, what is your role like with them as far as what you're doing actively?
Well, I'm on the board of directors, and in fact, we just recently hired a new director. Our former director had done a wonderful job, and he had an opportunity to move forward in his career, which couldn't be turned down, so he did it. And we've just recently hired a new director who I'm sure will take us to a new level. There's several houses in the Gardner area that house veterans, and we're working on a project in Winchendon that will house several tens more. I think there's 54 units that there will be allowed to utilize. We're looking at some different areas, but there's a lot of other aspects. Counseling. There's some counselors on staff, and people look. It's the more I learn about this place, the more involved I want to become.
Now, obviously, you've got a connection, having been in the service. What sparked you to get involved with this particular program?
Well, this person that got me involved was a classmate, and she had an experience when her husband got out of the service. He was troubled, and he, in fact, took his own life a few years later. It's become her objective in life to help people in his position to not have that end. And we talked about it a little bit, and she got me involved, and the hook was set. I'm involved. It's
That's
important
awesome.
to me.
I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, are very glad that you are involved.
Thank you.
How have you seen things change from, your time in the service and some of the guys getting out at that time and the ways that they were affected versus now? Obviously, it's probably some different issues, but obviously some similar issues as well.
I think the issues have been similar for veterans getting out of any area where there's a lot of stress. When I was very lucky. I was in the United States Coast Guard. It was the Vietnam era, but I had no issues that caused any kind of PTSD for me. But a lot of the friends that I had in high school, a lot of people that I've grown to know since, have certainly got issues. And I think World War II, when I saw my dad's friends, a lot of them, you'd always hear stories they would never talk about the war. And I think the reason was because they buried it inside them. And I see things from my era, the Vietnam era, and I see things now with, I'll call them kids, but they're 30 and 40 years old and 50 years old, coming from the wars that this country's been in and not being treated in a productive way when they get out of the service. There's a lot of care that's needed to help a lot of these men and women to get back into society, whether counseling or any kind of help to let them, I guess, open their wounds and let them heal.
Yeah, and I think that, from what I've seen, obviously some people kind of come back and assimilate very well, and obviously others struggle. But if someone wanted to get involved or help, what would that look like, or how would they be able to do that?
Well, I think there are all kinds of help availabilities. I think the Veterans Center in Leominster has plenty of things that could be anybody who would want to get involved with could volunteer for different things. All of these outfits, the one I'm involved with included, is always looking for fundraising opportunities and different things to. Nobody's putting money in their pocket. It's trying to help people who need the help. So I believe if you find a group and can assimilate to it a little bit, I think there's plenty of opportunities available to assist.
Now, if someone was struggling themselves, would you say to follow the same thing? Like, where would they reach out to?
Absolutely. Again, the group that I'm involved with certainly has a call center. They have places that you can go, and if you need assistance and help, call, and they'll provide it. They will help you. And they're not the only ones. There are other people around. But the one that I'm involved with, the MVOC, I'm very familiar that if you reach out to them, you'll be assisted.
And we were talking a little bit before this, about your work with them and how, you've worked hard your entire life, and now you're kind of able to take some time and work on these other projects and give back. What is that like for you?
Makes me feel good when I do anything that's in my own mind the least bit productive. It's a way to pat myself on the back, I guess, and I know that something good is going to come from it. So I guess that's the best feeling a person can have.
It's a good combination of obviously helping others, but then making yourself feel good as well.
Just part of life.
Definitely is.
It is.
I think that once you've grown this business, you've done very well. You've helped the people that work for you. You've helped your family immensely. Now you're kind of spreading out and growing that circle of people you're able to help. So I think that's, I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Now, with the success that you've had in your business and your life, what do you attribute that to?
That's a tough question. I guess I've got a pretty good work ethic. I not terribly industrious these days, but in the past I was a worker, and I worked hard to be successful, and successful not just financially, but to do a good job, and to have my grandfather looking down from heaven, where I'm sure he is, and give me a pat on the back someday.
I think he definitely is. With that being said, what are the things now that are most important to you, and how has that changed, I guess, throughout your life? Things that were important when you were younger, and now looking back on everything.
Well, my three girls and their families. I've got granddaughters and now even a great-granddaughter. I want to see them all successful. I want to see them all happy. I believe they are. I want to see them successful. I believe they are. And I want to see them continue with a smile on their faces. So that's a big factor, I guess. Got involved with my church. a couple of years ago, again, church I belonged to since the early 50s, where my mom was a Sunday school teacher, but gotten re-involved and doing some things on the board of trustees to make the church go forward. Churches these days are not a real popular item. A lot of people have walked away or don't go to church much anymore. And churches, New England Protestant churches, are on the endangered species list. So trying to do what I can to help my church survive.
Why, I guess, but I mean, besides the obvious, but why is it important to you?
Well, I think it's important. It's important to me because I get some spiritual guidance from the church. I think it's a good thing to reinforce beliefs. I'm a Christian. I think it's very important to learn and relearn about your religion, and I think it's important to the community to have a good faith-based places to go. Not just any one church, but any church who will preach right and wrong, to preach good values, whatever differences in different churches are. I think it's important to have those basic values get stronger. I've seen in my lifetime things eroding in that sort of thing, and I don't think it's healthy for this country to not have a good faith-based source.
I think a higher power is important.
Well, that's what I believe, yeah. I mean, everybody's entitled to their own, but I know what I believe, and I wouldn't try to push it on anybody, but I think it's important to have somebody and have everybody look up to a higher power.
And I think it gives you an important perspective of your place in the world. A lot of people nowadays, I think, have an overinflated sense of their place, and if they kind of take a step back and look.
7 billion people on the planet. We're just one of those 7 billion people. So I think there's more important things out there.
I also think it's interesting, like you said, a lot of people have walked away from their religion and stuff, but of all the things to walk away from, I mean, there's a reason that these ideas or texts, and not any one particular, but all of them in general, have existed for thousands of years and been passed on and passed on and passed on. Like there's something to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't begin to try to preach anything, but I do believe that.
Now, not to bring up a totally different subject, but it just popped into my mind. My brother and I were talking about this before our conversation, and you said, I got to ask you, tell me a little bit, some things you do for yourself. Let's talk a little bit about your cars.
Well, growing up in the 1950s, seems that a lot of my friends and myself were interested in cars. I've always been. My father was a mechanic. I've always been mechanically inclined, and my hobby is cars. I like to watch auto racing. I've become involved as a fan in auto racing, and I like cars, particularly hot rods. I like old cars, souped-up cars, things that can go fast but look good and particular style. They're kind of going out of style a little bit. The new generation really, they'd rather soup up their Audi, and that's not what I like. I like 1932 Fords or different things, old Corvettes, different things like that. And I've had the opportunity to collect a couple. I've got a couple of cars, and they're fun. They're fun to drive around. I call them ice cream cars. Friday night, you go buy an ice cream, and pretty much that's what you do.
It's perfect going out for a cruise.
Yes.
As you know, I've got I wouldn't call it a hot rod, but I've got my own older car that I've been putting together and working on, and there's just kind of indescribable feeling when you're working on a car yourself, or you put all this effort into building it, doing what you want to it, getting it running, and then you just get in it and drive it, and it's like everything in the world just disappears. It's just you going down the road.
Absolutely. Some of the cars that I haven't built from scratch. I hate to say I'd like to have had the time, but I've bought them pretty much the way they are, or done a few modifications to them. But they're all fun. They're all a little different, and they all kind of have a personality of their own, and they're different. They're different. So it's a fun hobby, and the people that you meet are good people too. That type of person, car hobby people, is full of good people.
Most definitely. Now, if you had to pick just one out of your collection,
oh boy,
which one?
Well, presently there are 4 cars in my collection, ranging from 1923 to 1967. Tough question. For any given day of the week, I think I like any given car. But the 1967 is being put back together. Recently, took it apart and had some things rebuilt, and I guess that's my prime concern right now. That wants to be the next project that's driven around and showed off, I guess.
So the modern one, the 67.
A little more modern, yeah. The other 3 are older. They're in the 20s and 30s, but and they've all got chrome this and chrome that, and they're to the.
That's the look.
To a person who is not a car person, it's like, oh, that's cute. But to a car person, they're pretty nice.
Well, they're all head turner cars. They drive by, and it doesn't look like anything else that's on the road right now.
Not at all.
They make you turn and look.
Absolutely.
So
they're fun.
Yeah, most definitely. I think we've kind of hit on all the points that I wanted to talk about. Once again, I really appreciate you coming out here and taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you. I'm like I said before, I'm concerned to see how this is going to turn out. I've heard myself speak, and I'm not impressed. So I can't wait to hear how this sounds.
The first one was good, and I think this is even better. You're a wealth of knowledge for me. I think you got a lot of valuable lessons that I personally, selfishly, find extremely helpful and interesting, and I think a lot of other people will too.
Wow, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
So thank you, Danny. I appreciate you coming down here.
Anytime. My pleasure.
Maybe we'll have you back for a third time.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in with us. We do this to share the stories of some of the incredible individuals in your community. All we ask in return is if you found value from this episode, please share it with someone else who may also gain value from the show. Please feel free to rate or review the show. Your feedback helps us give you more of what you want. Until next time, I'm Tim Lanza, and this was another Local Legacy.